Welcome, everybody. It is your girl, Jennifer, for Unscripted 2.0. And I have a guest here that I'd love to introduce. His name is Justin Marlowe. He's a poet and an author of a book that he published in August of 2024, Perfect Strangers, Echoes of a Black Suburban Youth. So welcome. I'm really excited for you to come join me on this unscripted conversation. So hello, how are you?
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm great, and I'm so excited to be here. It's a pleasure. Anytime I get to interact with great individuals who have, like-minded outlooks and goals, it's a win-win for everybody. So thank you very
So
much.
You're welcome, and I'm so glad the day finally has arrived. We've been talking a bit, leading up to this day. So why don't we just start there? I'd love to hear your perspective on our initial conversation and what you thought of just that first conversation, and how we connected to kind of lead to this conversation today.
So yeah, you and I interacted over DMs, Instagram. We followed one another, and I saw your content. I guess you saw mine. I think I like put like a fire emoji under something, and I think you said like, "Oh, I like your content too," and you said I might reach out in the near future, see if you wanted to do some sort of collaboration, and I said, "Sure," like I'm totally open because I love this kind of stuff. So that got the ball rolling. Um, and I want to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think within a week, we had set up a time to discuss the possibilities of doing a podcast episode.
Yeah, and, no, that's exactly how it went. But I also think that, it's interesting because, typically I'll have these conversations with people, just to kinda get a sense of it if it makes sense for the both of us, and the conversation was actually 2 hours long. I mean, almost, I think, 2 hours long. We talked a lot about very different things, but specifically, you gave me a really great understanding of your book and why you wrote the book that you wrote. So I have a question. What if you were to describe what genre this book falls into, what would you say the genre is in terms of your writing?
Nonfiction memoir.
Okay. What did you feel as you were writing, or why did you feel like you wanted to write this memoir at the age you were at? So tell me about that.
And I've thought this for probably about 10 years or so, that the story was one, worth telling,
Mhm.
and two, something that I think or thought a lot of people would gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So when I realized that I could possibly have an audience, I thought to myself, well, why not just go ahead and like give this a try? Because I would be kicking myself in the ass if I didn't try it out.
No,
So
I agree with you. It's like if it's I call it this like intrusive thought that's healthy. Like if it keeps kind of percolating in your mind, you have to do it. I mean, and I'm glad that you did because we talked a little bit. I got the transcript recently, but I was able to get to chapter 10, and I said to you actually today, I'm so kind of bummed that I couldn't read the whole thing. But you and I had such a good conversation that I felt really comfortable with having this conversation with you. But without giving too much away as far as the book, can you just give us a little glimpse into the subject matter that you were writing about?
well, it's completely a coming of age story about an individual, myself, within an African American in multiple suburban contextual demographics. As a military family, when I say multiple, then I'm from DC, I moved to South Carolina, I moved to Germany, I moved to Kansas, I moved to Louisiana, I moved to Virginia. So it's kind of like putting myself in those contexts, while being the ethnic minority, but the economic majority, and sort of like how I navigate the process between all the situations, as it relates to love interests, friendships, family dynamics, school dynamics, uh, socioeconomic dynamics, every artistic development slash confusion at times, all these things sort of occur. And I always felt that they were integral to myself. and that if I feel that way, then there must be a million people out there who think that it could be that way for them too.
And it was so interesting, and I think that's what kind of, intrigued me so much about, the book as I was reading, because clearly I didn't have the experiences that you've had, at all, but as far as, feeling a sense of confusion at times growing up within your environments or the people that you were, interacting with, whether it was in a school setting or understanding the disparities between schools that you were in, or just even, political views at the time, just a lot of different things I could, identify with just the confusion of growing up. And really, I mean, for you, and I think I said this in our conversation, there were there were not a lot of maybe conversations that you may have had with your mom and dad related to certain things. You talked a lot about other things, but those bigger questions, they weren't really answered, if that makes sense, where I don't know if that you would agree with that, or you would get an answer, but it seemed very sharp and matter of fact where, "Okay, this is the way it was," but you still had so many more questions, as a kid, as it relates to just who you are or why things were happening in your world and the confusion you associated with it. So I felt the same way. Why did certain people do certain things, or why did certain people feel the way they felt, specifically as a Hispanic and German. My father was German, my mom is Hispanic. Like, I would just get very different cultural behaviors just sitting at the dinner table, and it was very wild to me where my mom was very quiet about her culture, never spoke about it. It seemed like once she left Dominican Republic, she didn't really want to talk about it as much, whereas my dad was just so proud of being German and wanted to talk about it to a point where we were just like, "Dad, be quiet. We don't want to hear any more stories." But just all of the confusion I could resonate with.
There was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of that for me. Especially when you're not getting, I guess, the tutelage you need as you move from place to place, and how demographics change and everything culturally. There's cultural shifts even within our own nation in the United States. And if nobody's telling you, not, that sounds like I'm blaming my parents, and I'm just commenting. I'm not
Of
pointing
course.
blame, but yeah, like when that happens, and you don't know how to respond, or even like what kind of shield possibly, or guard maybe, to like um to put forth with respect to your sphere of influence. If you don't know those things, then you're just going into it kind of blind. And then when you do that, you can make some cultural mistakes, even though the cultural mistakes may not be real mistakes. They just might be mistakes within the given culture that you're in at the time.
So, and it's interesting that you say that. And just as an example, one of the examples that you gave in your book was when it was one of the times that you had moved. I think it Louisiana, but it was that you didn't address your teachers by Miss or Sir or something like that, and everybody looked at you like you were like
Oh, that was
this.
weird. That was really, I
Yes,
mean,
so that was very interesting when I read that. I was like, but I understand that because when I went to New Orleans or in the South, just somewhere in the South, I mean, even a person my age, I think I was 30, a man would refer to me as ma'am or miss, where I'd come back to New Jersey and that was absolutely not happening.
right.
So just the differences in culture. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was for
Well,
you?
that incident that you were referring to. That was day one, third grade, DeRidder, Louisiana. I was sitting in my seat. My teacher was Miss Green. The girl sitting next to me was Sonia. I don't know her last name, but her name was Sonia. And it was the first day of school, and the teacher was addressing Sonia, and the teacher was rattling questions and yada yada yada. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And I looked at her like she was crazy. And I was like, why the hell are you saying ma'am all the time? And then she says, "That's how we do it down here." And that didn't mean shit to me at 8, I didn't really
Well,
know.
why would it? Why would it? And I think that's the example of nobody told you that that was, part of the culture, and how would your parents know? either, but I
Well, they
felt for
wouldn't, yeah, they're right, they wouldn't have known. It'd be either
no,
totally
how would
bad.
they know? Unless you grew up there or you understood where you were going, of course, I'm sure they would have given you a play-by-play because that's a very I guess what I was sensing was that was a very important part of the respect factor as a teacher to student relationship.
Right. Could have also been part of, um, like, the ethnic caste system, maybe. I'm not saying definitively. I'm just saying maybe that a young black child could have felt the need to address, a middle-aged white woman that way. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
definitively. I'm just saying that I wouldn't be shocked if that was part of the relationship dynamic, which neither of those were a part of who I was.
Yeah.
So I probably came off like the flippant, privileged Yankee kid.
So, but let me ask you this. 'Cause you can think about your experience back then, and you were probably like, "It didn't mean shit to me," right? Like, I was just a kid, like, talking to my teacher, it didn't mean anything to me. But when you received the reaction you received from your peers, because I believe what I remember is that they kind of all looked at you like, "Are you crazy?" Like,
Well, no,
why?"
she did.
Oh, she did, okay.
Yeah, no one else. That was a very like condensed little moment. So that didn't move outside of that moment.
So interesting. I mean, I read it, and I don't know why that resonated with me, but it did because I said, "Wow, how can this kid know?" So I want to talk a little bit about how race has shaped just you internally throughout the course of just your life from the time you were younger and as you continue to move through just different environments. Like, how did it shape your thoughts and views on people, on how you viewed culture? Tell me a little bit about that.
Um, well, I always kind of embraced like a gumbo of culture because that's
Mm,
kind of what I was, even though yes, I'm an African American man, um, from an African American family. However, there were so many other elements like culturally, um, aesthetically, musically, artistically. There were so many other aspects that entered my life that I always, well, when I was old enough to internalize it and when I what I refer to as appropriately, it was like a gumbo of just cultural stuff that was presented to me, and I had to figure out a way to do something with that and make it work. Now, that isn't the same as what others were exposed to, which is what made some things difficult, It's what made some friendships and relationships difficult. It's what made, like we talked about when we chatted, conversations about music, not everybody was okay with somebody who likes to say, yo, I just would listen to Wu-Tang Clan and listen to NSYNC. They were like, what the hell? Like, what is this? Some kind of freak? No, I mean, I say that, but it's like, that's kind of like what people thought a lot of times.
No, no. Listen, I agree with you. I think that for me, it was I grew up in at the time when I was younger. The small town that I grew up in was predominantly white, and as I got closer and closer to my high school experience, um, people from New York City were starting to move into our town because we were very close to New York City. So the town that I once grew up in started to become more diversified. Which was great, right? I mean, it's great. But with that comes, different kinds of conversations and, specifically when it came to me and looking half white, half the time people didn't think I was Spanish. And then when they found out that I was Hispanic, actually, they would kind of just I wouldn't say bully me, but they would make fun of me. They would say, "You don't know Spanish," or "Do you even know how to speak Spanish? Do you dance to Spanish music? Do you eat Spanish food?" Like, my mother was, a woman that grew up there her whole life, and now looking back on it, she's no longer alive, but now looking back on it, my assumption is that she really had a very difficult life where she was, and it seemed like she just kinda wanted to just detach from her culture for whatever reason.
Mhm.
So we didn't get the upbringing as a traditional Hispanic mom would raise her children, very proud and proud to be from her island. We didn't get that, she never even really made Spanish food for us, and by the way, I'm obsessed with Spanish food and I eat it at least twice a week, maybe because I never got to eat it as a kid growing up, but she never did. So, but she was very cultural in terms of her cooking. But again, it looked like I was a freak because I was not the quote unquote traditional Dominican girl um, that came from a Dominican family at
Right.
all.
Yeah, I mean, my family was not were not the traditional African Americans who came from an African American family.
Yeah.
So, it was we were looked upon differently, and I mean, it was difficult when you mentioned Louisiana. So, I think I mentioned I talked to you about how Louisiana was, yes, as hard as it was, there were still a lot of other African Americans in that area. So even though I was not part of their general demographic, if something went down and it was like, yo, it's gonna be white kids versus black kids, I have the numbers on my side in Louisiana. When I moved to Virginia, there were no numbers. It was like we've never seen a black person other than on like Martin or in Living Color.
So it's interesting that you're bringing that up because one of the things, because I took a couple of notes, and one of the things that I wrote down, just my stream of consciousness was specific to that point that you're bringing up, constantly adjusting to new environments and culture as a Black child, like constantly having to adjust and pivot with no roadmap. So how did you like? I mean, going from even though Louisiana was quite a whirlwind. I refer to it as upside down world because I just felt like, during the time, the governor that was running at that time and all the things that were
Just
going
say
on
his
with that.
name. Just say his name.
You could say his name. Go ahead.
You don't want to say his name?
It's your, I will, you could say that's not what I said. I said, you should, it's your story.
David Duke. That was weird. And that when you say upside down world, that is 100% correct because
Yeah, that was my initial, like, that's how I want, that's exactly what I felt for you and for anybody. Like, I felt like what you named it, the Twilight Zone. I called it upside down world.
yeah, it's what it was. I mean, like I said, it was crazy. I mean, crazy in the sense like I've only seen I mean, I think you probably read a little bit about my exposure to the Eyes on the Prize documentary when I was in Germany. That sort of intoxicated me in terms of interest in African American cultural experiences within the American system. But I did not experience any of those inadequacies. Then all of a sudden, moving to Louisiana, it was like all these things you saw on TV from the 50s and 60s are still here in 1992. And the kids feel it because their parents feel it.
Oh, for sure.
And the governor or the person running for governor is the former grand wizard of the group that you saw in those videos burning crosses and not saying he was in those. I'm saying like the group, the organization. He's the grand wizard of the KKK. So he's in those videos, not him, the organization. And you keep hearing the person running for governor was previously the grand wizard of this organization. So talk about upside down. It was like sideways. I don't know if that's even a better term or not, but and it made the school system sort of like janky because you had, I mean, not everybody is a like racist conservative. So not to say that any conservative is 100% racist. I'm just saying in
No,
that,
for sure. Yeah.
but
That was the observation at that time.
right.
Dir
So
That is what you're saying to
yeah,
clarify for people that are listening.
every single day, if you're does your dad support Duke or does your dad support the other guy? Every day. And if you don't support one, Someone's getting punched.
So going back to that idea of constantly having to adjust, but it's like your adjustments were happening so fast without, as I said, a roadmap. And then just when you're processing, okay, this just happened, you're on to the next adventure, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, like here we are, now we're here. And nobody knows that nobody's seen a black person before. And I'm that black kid. And now I've got to experience all that comes with that.
Yeah, you gotta just move. You just keep moving along, keep doing your thing. Cause I mean, the future waits for no one.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
you know, you just gotta keep on. At the time, I just saw it as, you just keep moving forward. Um, but when I was in Virginia, that was the first time I ever thought, I was like, you know what? I'm going to let my mind settle this because these kids had one way of thinking, and clearly I'm the minority, and I'm not going to stop being the minority for a while. So if we go out on the football field, I'm just going to do my thing. If we're going to be in the classroom, I'm going to do my thing, and eventually, I'll be looked at as an equal and not as a stereotypical like being.
I feel like that's so, how did you come to understand yourself in that way at that time when you're just like, I'm going to let my mind handle it? Like, what person or young person says that? It's just wild to me that you were able to take that experience and then respond accordingly as you're sharing with me. Like, how did you find it in you to be able to just process that information and just come up with that type of response?
Well, that's me saying this a lot of it in hindsight. Um, at the same time, though, that really was what I was thinking.
But that's what we were doing for
Yeah,
sure.
right. I didn't have a choice, to be honest with you. I couldn't fight back. I could not, because there and the numbers were so against me. I couldn't be like, "Yo, let's meet up at the schoolyard after." That was not going to work.
So let me ask you a question. I have so many questions. So like I'm like jumping in. So what were some of the experiences that really you look at now, since we're talking in hindsight? What are some of the key experiences that you had growing up as you just kind of hopped into all these different environments that has really shaped kind of how you process things and how you view the world? Like, what are some of those key experiences that you think were so important that you share about in your book?
Um, well, the spirit experiences that I had in Germany,
Yeah.
that was very
Can you
worldly.
can you talk about that a little bit? Just because I think that we haven't spoken about that, but that was at the beginning of the book,
Right.
very beginning. So can you talk a little bit about, what that was like and why you were there?
Well, my father was stationed on the, I want to say, Berblingen Army base in Stuttgart, Germany. We were there for 2 years. It was a very great experience. It was very nice. Everything was very pristine, very pretty. Um, I mean, we took all kinds of trips all over Western Europe. We had this little brown minivan, Mitsubishi minivan. We took all over the place, Poland, Austria, and it was great. But I think it gave me like a false sense of privilege, a little. I didn't know
Why do
anything.
you say that? Why do you say that?
Um, because I didn't know anything about what I was going to get into when I moved to the States.
Got it. Because
So
at that time, you didn't really know really the magnitude of what was happening or the people, um, that you refer to, like, even Black experiences, what they were there because you just knew what you knew in Europe, is what
I
you're
had
saying.
no clue other than what I had seen on documentaries.
Yes, 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 yes,
And those are referencing the 50s and 60s.
yes,
So
yes.
I was thinking like we're kind of past that, but I have no idea because I'm in Germany.
Crazy.
Um, so yeah, it was like a false sense of privilege. Maybe not false, it's just a sense of privilege. Like we were doing like really cool shit and it
Yeah.
was really nice.
Well, that is but you are privileged in some regards. I mean, granted, your dad, being in the military, it gave you those benefits to being able to do certain things that maybe people that weren't in the military. Just like, again, a little bit of a overlap. My dad and my grandfather, they worked for the airlines. My grandfather was an engineer, and my great grandfather was as well, and my dad was a mechanic. However, he chose to continue to pursue that career because he wanted to travel over the world. So we traveled all over the world, um, because we had those benefits. So just like you as a teenager, I mean, I was in Paris for my sweet 16, so it was like people would like ask me like, "Oh, well, where have you been?" And they'd sit around me in middle school and ask me where I traveled to because we had those benefits because my dad made that happen. So kind of like you, I had that full, now that we're like kind of talking about it, I had that false sense of privilege too. I remember, going first class to Europe all the time because we could. But my dad would always remind me, "Jennifer, this is people save their whole life for one ticket like this, and you're doing this once a year." Like, I remember losing my contact, and there was, like, 4 people on the floor trying to find it, and I grew up with that false sense of privilege. Little did I know now, I'm 47, and I'm like, "Shit, I've gotta freaking save a whole year for this," just for one ticket.
I'm not shy about talking about the fact that yes, I was privileged, and I'm not denying that whatsoever.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I am either, but I also don't think I always think that there's somebody that has a lot more than I do. And I guess growing up, our family within our town were one of the families that we did well.
Right.
However, I will say as a Hispat my mother always had businesses, and white families would ask me, well, my friends, the white friends that I had would sometimes ask me, "What does your parents do that you have all this stuff?"
Mm,
And I'm like, "I didn't understand the question because did I ask you what your parents do to have all that stuff?
right.
Like, did I ask you that question? Like, why are you asking me that?" So, I remember going home because my mom would sometimes see people on the bus because she would, travel to New York, and I would ask her that, and she would get really pissed off. She would say, "Why are they asking you a question like that?"
Mhm.
It
When
it
you
just yeah.
when
Go
you
ahead.
asked me the question about race and how like contextualizes my or how it contextualized me, I talked about a little bit, like in Germany, how it was like not very contextualized, but then I
Yes.
was able to fortunately get um those tapes from BET sent from my uncle.
Yes, I remember that. You were getting those.
Yeah, that was huge. That was
Yeah.
so huge. Like, so my uncle would send these because we only had German television in our home. So he would send us from Maryland, he would send us um videos like VHSs of the BET top 25 countdown. So we would get these packages and they'd have like 3 tapes in them and they'd all be like 1 week, the next week, the next week. And they're kind of like the same like videos, but still it's like it was still really cool to see these videos that you weren't going to see in Germany. So we got to see Michael and Prince and Luther and
Yeah, it's
Janet
so fun.
and like Billy Ocean and Sheila E. I'm trying to like ballpark all these artists now. Oh man, like Howard Jones, Rick Astley. There's not always black artists. It doesn't matter if they're Paula Abdul, like, and it was so cool because we weren't able to see that over there. So then to hear that in the late 80s, it really kind of was a good sense of being able to internalize um those pieces of black culture that you weren't going to get in
Yeah.
Germany.
And I love that for you because I think that that also was helpful for you to also, just experience that type of culture because you were getting it where you were living. And that must have felt so good to be able to just watch all of those artists, some of them that, that looked like you or that you could identify with that were doing these amazing artistic things. And you're like, holy shit, like, send me more
Yeah,
tapes.
it was really
Send
cool.
me
I
more
mean,
tapes.
I remember rewinding the tapes a lot for
Were you
fast
like
forwarding.
practicing the dances?
So that's another conversation, but
'Cause I know for my well, to be funny, because we don't have to be so serious, but I remember in 7th grade, the talent show, I did "Cold Hearted Snake" by Paula Abdul.
that's a hard dance move to do. I can't believe you did that.
And I will one up that one. Last summer, I saw Paula Abdul at PNC in South Jersey with the New
Mm.
Kids on the Block, and Paula Abdul danced exactly as she did, amazing, didn't skip a beat
Did she
since I was
sing the
7.
same though?
She's I mean, listen, she was a choreographer, she did all
No,
the
but did
things.
she
She
sing the same?
and I have videos I can send you. She
No, I'm
sang
I'm
the
kidding, I'm
same.
kidding.
I'm kidding too, but she
Mm.
did sing the same for sure. But going back, we digress because I think that the music was I think it just brings so much, joy and emotion. I just the
I
the
used to run that tape back to Smooth Criminal for Michael Jackson
Mhm.
and to Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up.
And that's my son's favorite song at 12.
It's an amazing record. I
It's
mean,
amazing.
there's no reason to, like, shit on it, like, it's a great
No, I
mm.
still listen to it.
But yeah, those were the joints that were, like and, um, not to, like so I'm gonna include these individuals that I'm 100%, um, okay with saying this. Milli Vanilli, totally fans, huge fans.
I mean, I was too. I had their
Yep.
tape.
I had their tape in my car for, like, 20 years.
I mean, I knew even though they didn't sing the songs, I didn't care, I liked the music, I knew every lyric, um, but it just going back to the point of why we're bringing this up is that it gave you I guess, what did it give you, like, as you got these tapes and you're in Germany, like, what did that do for you? Is kinda I want to make sure that whoever's listening understands that this is not
No.
something that you experienced up until you were receiving those tapes. And how old were you, by the way, for context?
6.
Okay, crazy. Yeah, 6. And it had that much impact on you.
Yeah, so that's a $1,000,000 question, and it's a great I'm glad you asked that. So what it gave me was it gave me appreciation for art. So I was inundated at the time with, cool shit. Like, it was just Michael, Madonna, Prince, George Michael, Milli Vanilli, Rick Astley, Paula Abdul, Terrence Trent D'Arby, Run DMC, I mean, Luther Vandross, Anita Baker. These were all in my home and in my family's car all the time. And these are some of yeah, you can exclude Milli Vanilli, that's fine. But some of the greats, some of the greatest of all time. And this was going on all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and it really, at least like in hindsight, it kind of shaped my perspective on music, on art. Not so much hip hop because it wasn't very hip hop oriented. Although my father did at one point. I'm not sure if you got to that part in the book where he bought Salt and Peppa's album, Salt with a Deadly Pepper.
No, I didn't get to that part.
Okay, so he had that on repeat in our car, like the tape, all like it was like every day. And I didn't mind it, but that was my first foray into hip hop. But not to say that it's not hip hop, because it definitely is.
No, for sure it is.
But it wasn't what hip hop would become.
I mean, I agree, but I think that music or the evolution of hip hop became what it was because of the environment, the times that we were in. I mean, so I believe that hip hop to me it was like a history lesson through time is what I feel.
Yeah, it's like
Based
CNN through the hood.
for sure. And I dig it and I'm all about it, but I think that again, it's based on the time that you're in, you're getting what you're getting. As you go into the 80s and 90s, you're getting something different. You're getting something a lot more political, when it comes to hip hop. But yeah,
But it's also based on what becomes popular and marketable.
100%, 100%. And
So
it
Salt
always
and
goes,
Pepper was before gangster rap became
yeah,
marketable.
no, for sure.
So my via my parents, I was not privy to like NWA.
Yeah, I wouldn't see you being privy to that as a military.
No, but
I wouldn't see that as an option for you.
it became an option. You might not have gotten to that point yet, but it became not NWA, but in '92 when I was in Louisiana, I kind of got like bullied because I was the one black kid who hadn't heard Dr. Dre's The Chronic.
Oh, I feel bad for you.
Yeah, that was tough. Um,
That was my first my first concert was Up in Smoke, the Up in Smoke tour.
okay. My brother went to that concert.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was living life, but, if you didn't know about that, I'm sorry. You were probably definitely getting bullied if you didn't know about that.
No, and that's something I will say, and I jokingly say this.
Yeah.
I was bullied to listening to something good. So
I mean, that's
I appreciate the bullying because I'm not gonna like bullshit. I was in class and we were in the fourth grade, 1992, Miss Singletary's class, history class, and these young kids, it was just like straight up. They were like 1, 2, 3 into the 4, and then they were like, Justin, come on, chime in, and I was like,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
I was
10?
like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Oh my god.
See, I didn't know. And then I went to
Oh,
my friend and I was like, yo, what were they talking about? And they were like, yo, this is new, West Coast album called The Chronic. And I was like, yo, can you dub me something like, can you dub me the tape? He was like, yeah, come back to me tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I got you. And then it was on. So I had that tape then. The dub copy. I think I had my dad. I'm sorry, I had him put I had my friend put the title like R&B jams on it so my parents wouldn't care that I got it.
okay, that was very, smart of you to do that.
Yeah, so that was my first foray was like Dre into gangster rap.
So I think we had this conversation. I mean, I'm older than you, but my first tape, like, considered rap was, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Parents just don't understand.
That's
So
about
ima
as rap as Salt and Pepper is rap.
yeah, but back then, my father probably never heard a rap song in his life, and
Right.
my mother never did either, and so they're listening I'm blasting this tape saying, basically, "Go fuck off parents." Like, parents just don't understand,
In
and
a
my
very
parents
PC manner though at the
I
same
mean,
time.
yeah, exactly, exactly, but I'm listening to something that basically is saying, "Parents don't get you, screw it, like, do
Yeah.
you rebel," and as their only daughter, they were not feeling it, they were like, "Take that crap off." And I'm like and I would go into my room, and I think that was actually the first time I think I started to kind of separate myself from what they wanted me to hear and what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and just kind of what I thought made sense for me because it was also a very, appropriate and within normal range of development to separate. So, of
Sure.
course, it's so normal to do that, but back
Right.
then, they wanted my parents at least wanted total control over
I wrote about like later in the book, I wrote about how I got to that level. I think I told you about when I got into Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
and how that was like my mom was like, turn this off. This is noise. And I think that what you're saying and what I'm saying at the same time
Yeah,
is what I wrote about was that the process of like musical progression with respect to subject matter, it's going to always do that to parents.
yeah,
So the parents who listen to um instrumental albums or jazz albums in the 40s hated it when they heard a black man like Chuck Berry on his guitar in the 50s. And then when they heard Elvis, they hated that.
yeah, they did.
When they heard Pink Floyd, they hated that. When they heard the Beatles, they hated that. So much is always like the the new generation sort of is the progressive push against the old generation. Um I think that's very typical when it comes to art, and especially when it comes to music, as far as the art when with music.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we could talk so much about music because I think that's also a big part of growing up in our cultural experience and also um, being able to have different likes and dislikes and being able to step our foot in so many different worlds culturally. So I kind of wanted to segue into this. I wrote down, bicultural, and you were like, maybe we shouldn't, I want
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk a little bit about that because culture, as we both understand it, um, incorporate lots of different things. It's not just one specific idea, right? So let's talk a little bit about how you view culture or how culture really impacted you or how it also confused you at some points. Because I think it had different effects on you as it did I.
Mhm. So, I internalize culture, like I said earlier to you, as being any small segment of society which kind of has its own niche. So, there's military culture,
Mhm.
there's female culture, there's male culture, there's Asian culture, there's black culture, there's white culture, there's Hispanic culture. There are segments of all those that are broken down even further. Athletic culture, LGBTQ plus culture. There's so many things. So I always thought that when I was growing up, as I look back, that there were so many elements of multiculturalism that were there that it made it difficult for me to interact with those who didn't have similar experiences.
Mm. What was it? I know this is an obvious answer for the both of us, but I think that it's important to ask obvious questions for people to understand and open up their perspective. So, why did you find it so challenging or maybe choose not to engage with people that didn't have your same perspective? Because wouldn't we kind of look at it the same way as a person that only had one specific perspective? It's kind of like hypocritical, don't you think? Like, if you can't I'm just wondering because we want people to be open, but then those people that are not open, we don't want to engage in when we're the people that maybe are able to open them up to new ideas.
Yeah, good point. I think that for a long time I spent too much time dealing with individuals who couldn't open up,
Got it.
and therefore I was like frustrated and I didn't really know why at a young age. At this point I would know why, but at the time I did not know why.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Which is why I brought in the book the notion of friendship and bonding, because I didn't really know for a long time, like, what do I want in a friend? What's gonna make me feel like good, appropriate? What's gonna like um vibe with me the right way? So yeah, so I think I just kind of stuck in things even though it wasn't always going to be um I want to say profitable, but I mean like emotionally profitable
Yeah, of course, you weren't
for me.
benefiting from the relationship or didn't feel aligned, and that also is a way now, I guess, looking at it, we pick and choose who we want to surround ourselves with. So if you're not in the same kind of, if you're not aligned or maybe open to other perspective, then for some reason it could be not a comfortable place or something you want to waste your time in. I just want to talk a little bit about this idea of perspective because um, I work in education as well, and I work with teenagers. And there at times have been some experiences that some of our teenagers had that were related to race. And the interesting thing that I found was that, and I find them so fascinating and amazing. And if they're listening, I'm in awe that they want to be able to teach others to be more open or to understand them as a Black student in a majority, um, white school, okay? And I find that, so brave and powerful and, scary, I'm not thems. I'm not Black, I don't have that experience. I feel very comfortable talking about race because I come from a place of curiosity, I come from a place of wanting to learn, I come from a place of I don't care if I screw it up, because that's why you're here to teach me to pivot or adjust if I'm saying something wrong. That's how we learn. The point is that I'm just in awe that they wanna have those conversations and they want to be able to offer people different perspective, even though sometimes they will not know what the response will be, you know what I mean, from the recipient, which
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been around some amazingly progressive parents who instill these types of not just respect with respect to black people, but like
yeah,
any marginalized culture whatsoever, being
for
it
sure.
and some of them have been great about instilling that level of empathy so that their kids can embrace and I guess like move it along with them as they continue their journey in life. And it's a great thing to see. It's not always gonna happen,
No, it's not.
but I've seen it happen a few times. And even just recently I saw one of my friends on Facebook, a mother who I know is like we're just we're speaking about, and her daughter is doing the same thing. And she just got through her 8th grade graduation, and I can completely see how she would be on the same sort of path in an empathetic sense. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So, as let's go back to kind of this idea of just the idea of culture. And you were bringing up the fact that there's so many different levels, and you brought up all different types of pockets of culture, right? Where can you talk a little bit about your experience within all those pockets that you did actually experience growing up? Because you were in many in some ways there was so much culture that you were privy to.
Mhm.
And I know that you named a ton of different ones, but the ones that you specifically identified with, military culture, Black culture, white culture, I mean, all the things. What are some of the things that were really challenging, but what were some of the things that were really beneficial for you?
Well, if you want to mix up or muddy, I'm not saying muddy in a bad way. I use
No,
it if it's in a good way. If you
yeah.
want to mix up like black and white culture, okay, like in a general sense, I think we talked about like television shows and music.
Mhm.
So I would on a regular basis primetime television. At the age of 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, it was all up for grabs.
Yeah.
Seinfeld, Roseanne, Home Improvement, Family Matters, Fresh Prince, Rock, um, Saturday Night Live, Living Color, Martin. These are all in my wheelhouse, and they all mix up levels of the cultures that you're
For
referring to.
sure.
So for me, that's a good thing to mix all that stuff up. I'm hearing all these different kinds of humor, perspectives, takes, slapstick, wit, sarcasm, extremes on both ends, I guess you could say. And it was great. But when I went to school, some of the teachers didn't necessarily like the fact that I would reference those reference the mix of them all, I guess you would say. So, and I forgot to mention 90210, which was the biggest one because I would watch that show before I went to bed, like every, I don't know, Tuesday on Fox, I think. And I was too young to watch 90210. I was probably 8, I think. And I'm sitting here like watching teenagers go through teenage things. It's not my like wheelhouse, but at the same time, it's like a more advanced Saved by the Bell kind of
Mhm.
without the comedy, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so it wasn't tough. It was great. Like I personally loved it. It was a a fruitful conglomerate of information that was put forth towards me. To my teachers, when I think I mentioned when I was talking to my friend and I was like talking about women, or and I was like, yeah, bro, we were just talking about yada yada yada. And
Yeah.
then she was like, oh, what are you talking about? Like Robin Givens and Karen Parsons and Tatiana Ali. And I was like, nah, we were talking about Jenny Garth and Shannon Doherty. She was like, oh my
And
God.
yeah.
Which we could have been talking about those other people. Like that would have been totally normal for us as fourth graders.
Yeah.
But the fact that she went there, it kind of showed me that like my view on cultural meshing wasn't the same as others at the time.
And I think we talked about this. Like you were able at that point to be able to have all of a like a mix of culture where you could identify with mostly all different types of culture, all different types of characters and people, which is so I mean, I think is what we want, right? We want that for people, for young people to be able to see all types of different people and really connect to them. But I think we spoke on the phone about this, and I said to you, yes, well, it was a layered conversation, but I think I said, well, sometimes, you know, teachers don't really have any idea how to connect with students of different cultures sometimes. So they think that they're trying to connect by what the student knows just to try to connect, and they miss the mark really, and they miss the mark. Um, and I'm not saying that happened. We discussed that that wasn't what it was for reasons.
It could
But
have
I
been. I don't know. It could you maybe you're
could have
right.
been because I know that sometimes I will do that. I think I've done that a couple of times when I don't know what to say to a student sometimes.
Mhm.
So I think, okay, well, maybe I can relate to them or get them to talk to me and or develop some common ground with maybe something that they may like, and it does not land. But my intention is very pure in the sense that I wanna connect.
Right, right, right. Yeah, maybe look, that's my interpretation of one instance in 1992. So
Mhm.
I could
No,
be
of course.
off completely. I'm just telling you how it sounded to me at the time.
Yeah.
Um, there have been other times that I've been discussing like hip hop with my friends and my teachers like don't get it at all. Those are the two that I really remember for the most part. Um, but I mean, when you talk about culture, like I was discussing earlier when I said like my brother and I listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony, and my mom didn't get it. That's a cultural divide right there. There could be an age cultural sort of
It
thing.
could be. No, it could totally be. So, and I think that unless you asked her directly, "Hey, mom, why is it that you do not like this song? Why do you feel like it's noise?" Like, unless you directly ask her and you get an answer,
I
you will
did.
just,
I did.
"Okay." And what did she say?
I'm I can't get it. I just bass, the music. I mean, nothing about it would have been like that's cool. I'm saying like nothing about it would have
Yeah.
worked with her. And this is not making fun. I'm just saying.
No, it's
If,
just what it is, the preference, like, it could be preference, and plus that was a very wasn't that and I also think that it's a little bit more of a different, um, sound, I would say. People from the East Coast maybe didn't really understand some of the vibes that West Coast brought because that was a more of a West Coast. Am I wrong for saying that?
it was definitely not that was Cleveland.
See, I don't know, so thank you for correcting me, I butchered that one up.
No, it's okay. I think the issue with well, I think one issue is that Bone Thugs was one of the first mainstream acts that sort of like delved into the subgenre of horrorcore.
But I didn't was it because I felt like it had such sound that I didn't find it to be did you say hardcore? I didn't
No,
find it to be.
horrorcore.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, yes, I could see that. I could see
Where it's
that.
like demented type of shit.
No, I could see okay, I didn't hear what you were saying. I could see that. in a
Yeah.
pop culturist type of way, like making it sound pretty.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds dope, and the music is great, and the harmonies are good, and, like, the rhymes are quick, but it's still kind of, like, more on the demented side.
No, if you're actually reading the lyrics, you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, so I understand if you can articulate it and say, "Well, I don't like horrorcore," that's fair, but if you just tell me, like, "Sounds like noise," I don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't know what that means either. That's to me doesn't make sense. And it sounded like you would be able to receive information if it was logical or you could understand what they were saying, but that to a noise can mean anything.
To
And I
my
think
brain, if you don't respond with something that has logic, I
mhm.
kinda, like, check out,
Yeah, no, for sure.
you
For
know?
sure. So I wanna switch gears a little bit just, since we're coming to the closing of our conversation, which has been fabulous. But what are some of the themes that some of your readers can expect throughout your book?
Coming of age is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Coming of age, friendship, um, just development as a whole. So if
Fair.
you're interested in, like, just because it reads like journal entries kind of.
Which I loved.
Yeah, they're progressive on the same timeline.
They are.
So, coming of age, journal entries, friendship, um
Like you have a little sarcastic twist to it, which I really enjoyed. Like the sarcasm and the wit behind some of the tone you carry with some of the just experiences that you had, I thought were very engaging. I mean, it kept me engaged, the sarcasm to how you saw things as a young person or even the hindsight perspective of it, but still being able to capture who you were as a child. I think was really engaging. Um, but I have one more question. I have the last question I want to ask you is what do you ultimately hope to accomplish um with this book? And what do you want your readers to really take away from this book?
increased engaging conversation.
Yeah.
I've done it, I've done it with you, I've done it with other people before. I wanna keep doing it. I've done it in book talks, and, one of the most fruitful aspects has been the notion of readers asking questions,
Mm,
and I always say no questions off limits,
100%.
So I've had people that have said to me, "I bought this because my son is living in a predominantly white area, and he's an African American, and I want him to know what someone else went through." So that's impactful to me. That really means a lot. So when individuals say things like that, or when they just want to ask questions, I went from fucking around to, like, being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a pro author," like, "Woohoo, fun," right? And then people were like, "Yeah, we love this."
It's
I'm not minimizing, I'm just
no,
saying.
I know they're not, but I'm telling you, for a person that has absolutely no time to read for pleasure, which by the way, I hope to do when during the next couple of months as I have more time. It was easy to read, but also, as I said, just all of the things that you were talking about in your experience. And again, there's some overlap for how I can identify in some
Yeah.
ways. But I just felt like um, it did feel comfortable enough that we could have these conversations. And I do also have these conversations on my day to day with my students, but it just seemed just so relevant to even just now in our times. And again, helping students or helping people that are going through experiences that are not really what they think that they should be going through or the confusion and I think the takeaway for me was it's we're all a bit confused. If you're confused, it's okay. It's okay to ask questions and that's really normal and listen to yourself. Listen to your internal voice because if something is not right and you're confused, ask a question.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought on it, my final thought on it, like, ask a question.
Yeah, I like I said, I want people to just engage. If you like the book, if you should order it for your students, for your whole entire school.
Well, I mean, listen, I wanna take it a step further. We're gonna have a conversation after this for sure, because I'd love
Mm.
to have you as a guest.
Oh, well,
Virtual.
I'm down for that. That's cool.
No, yes, we'll definitely, so it'll segue into my last thing, what's next? So that will be one of the things that's next year in our school year, but what's next for you? Do you have any other projects that you're working on? Where can we find you? What are some projects that you're working on? And let us know now, like, future stuff.
You can find me on Instagram at J Marlowe Writes. That's JMarloWrites. Any, I respond to DMs readily. But right now I'm working on a science fiction novella that I am literally like daily wrapping up. I mean, when I say daily, I mean like every day I say it's the last day, and then it's like not the last day.
A s
Um,
a
but
science fiction novella.
yeah, it's like a black site, like set in Africa, kind of like it's like a mix of Roots and Black Panther.
Nice.
I
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it. I'm just really trying to polish it up.
Yeah,
So I've got a few agents that are interested, but at the same time, I'm really trying to just do my thing, and that's next up for me. So
I
yeah,
love
that's waiting in the wings. But in the meantime, I mean, I'm promoting Perfect Strangers, and for anyone who has questions or
100%, and I just wanna share this, that, I asked you where to find you, but of course, for any of you, that wanna learn more about Justin, I will have all of his information on our show notes and description on, my podcast, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We will be sharing clips. I will also share, where to find him on my Instagram handle, and if you guys want any more information, you know where to find them. But until then, we are so excited to have you on. I mean, the book is great. I hope that, more people read it, because there's just so much there. I mean, there's multiple stories happening in once. So thank you so much for taking so much time to sit with me and have this unscripted conversation.
I appreciate it so much, Jennifer.
All right. So until then, guys, I will see you soon.